It's a unique thing to do, to put a bit of rock and roll into a company and have some fun to open a great conference. But it will require the absolute best of who you're going to be.
Oh, let the sun beat down upon my face with thoughts to fill my dreams. I am a traveler of time and space to see what I've seen. We talk of days for which we sit now and wait, when all will be revealed.
You know, life comes at us very fast. This day and age, we've got social media, we've got the internet, we've got a lot of pressure on us. Sometimes technology can make us forget something very simple. And over the next hour or so, we're going to remind you of that. Very simple lesson. We're all still human.
Foolish to make your mind. See through this and see what's behind. Got no way to prove it, so maybe I'm blind. But I'm human after all. You blame on me. Yeah, you blame on me.
There you go. Give the band a round of applause for kicking us off. Welcome. Welcome. My name's Simon Hammond. I'm going to be taking you on this odyssey of music, popular culture, some thinking. My job is I get to travel with these guys a lot, here and around the world, talking about human beings, consumer behaviour, brands. And you've got a great brand. So we're going to talk a lot about that as this next hour or so goes on. I want to remind you of what you've got already and what you can do with it, if indeed you treat it as humans. So in many ways, a lot of the show has got to do with this. It's got to do with admitting to ourselves who we really are. You know, it's okay to be sitting in a room like this and coming together because we're together and it's human. But at the same time, the real world is out there when we're screaming at matches and we're doing popular cultural things. We're having New Year's Eve and setting off tens and hundreds of thousands of fireworks for no reason except that we can actually celebrate at 12 o'clock. You know, I don't know if anyone watched this last night. Anyone watch Roger? Wasn't that a great moment? I know where you watched it. He did cry a lot. He did. I'll see if I can make Sammy cry a lot later too, because it's, you know what, that's the moment when we're watching our TVs and 2 million plus people are watching the Australian Open. The most effect, everything I read today was about Federer crying. And it was about the fact that as human beings, we like to remind ourselves that it's great to feel emotional. My point to you over and over again today is going to be that this should be just as relevant for business as it is for the Australian Open. We need to understand if you're going to leave this conference after Friday and enact upon your belief and really drive it, you've got to be doing so with passion as human beings. Now, human beings aren't always logical. Has anyone caught this yet? Now, if no hands go up, I know you're lying to me already, and that's not a great start to our relationship. This is Married at First Sight. 2 million viewers watch what they call, which I love the quote, the psychological sewer of Australian TV. Now, did anyone watch it? Anyone? It started, hasn't it? Didn't it start last night or something like that? Anyway, watch it. It's your homework. I'm giving you homework to do. And we go from one thing to the next and feel it and live it and celebrate it. And today, at the start of this conference, I'd love you to celebrate what it is to be emotional. Bad and good. It comes at us at the same pace. These things, and this is the same thing with your customers. You know, when they present, when the consumers consume, they do so holding on to this stuff. We don't just detach it. We don't detach our humanness. We take it with us in everything. So a business and a brand has to meet that. 90,000 people at the MCG watching a test match that had no meaning. But it did. We'd already beaten them, hadn't we? So it was a dead rubber, and still 90,000 people still doing stuff that doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. What the hell is that about? So what I'm saying to you is that the world is full of great moments. We'd like to create one here for you now. We'd like to make you feel proud of being part of Bayer, because this is a great brand. It's a great company, but the world does not make sense around you. I mean, this to me is the epitome of stupidity right here. We have got, look at the mother. So that's the mother who's scarred that child for the rest of her life. Look at the child. That poor kid, when they, you know, 21st birthday, think 21st birthday, what that kid's going to be seeing, completely scared by that idiot in front of them. I'm not sure what was going on there. This is the world in front of us. There was a song written some time ago, and it's a brilliant song, and it kind of, yeah, I know. You're not looking at the bulls, are you? You know, that shot is actually a shot where popular culture doesn't always, unfortunately, take respect of everyone's feelings. And I, for one, am not telling you that, you know, I agree or disagree with any of this. I'm just saying it's what we live with. And someone, a great writer, called it a ship of fools. Have a listen to what they said.
Don't
Oh, you can do that. Don't encourage them too much. They'll play all bloody afternoon. No. Anyone feel a bit distressed by that video? I know every time I watch it, I do. If you're a parent, you should. You know, the world around us is, and I'm often, you know, the messenger is often shot, but the world around us is brutal. It's brutal and it's cruel, and all the things that happen, you can't just say that's not the case. So a company with the integrity and the pedigree can't just go, well, it's not happening. You've got to sell, you've got to be, you've got to exist, your brands have got to exist in a world that has now become quite brutal. And so a belief, a purpose, becomes paramount. It becomes so much more important than it's ever been in the history of business. And the great rise in business at the moment, as I travel the world and do this for a living and look at brands, is the rise of belief and the rise of purpose. But not on a piece of paper that's stuck in a top drawer. It's purpose that's lived by everyone. The reason you're here in this room today and we're doing this show is because purpose has got to rise above that rubbish. It's got to make sense of the world that goes against the negativity. We actually need people, we as a society, we need people to make sense of the world. This guy up here, I saw him play in Melbourne last year. His name is Passenger. And I tell you what, people don't go and listen to his music, they go and listen to his words. Words matter. Have a listen to what he sings about.
Sing at the top of your voice. Love without fear in your heart. Feel like you still have a chance. With all the lights up, we can scare away the dark. Wish our weekend, spend our weekends in bed. Work ourselves stupid, dead not just because what mom and dad said you do. We should run through the forest and swim in the streams. We should laugh, we should cry, we should love, we should dream, we should stare at the stars. Not just the scheme. You know what I'm saying? You know what it means to sing. Sing at the top of your voice. And love without fear in your heart. Feel like you still have a chance. 'Cause if we all light up, we can scare away the dark. If we all light up, we can scare away the dark.
Sam Vandenberg singing to you. That's nice, isn't it? Don't you feel better? I don't know about you, but that makes me feel better than the last video. You know, because words matter. And you know, the musical fraternity, the reason why we do this show live is because they have the great luxury that we don't have. They don't have anyone to check and measure and check their HR and check this and check that. And so they have this unbridled ability to say what they want. That's not to say we don't all think that, but we have to live within certain constraints, and that's acceptable. But that makes us feel better. You know, the idea of if we all light up, we can scare away the dark. It's something we respond to because I know we respond to it because we buy millions of those records and we watch millions of videos on YouTube. So what we're talking about here is the power of real words and real stories. And today I'm going to ask you to even go further with your brand and say you should bring this to life with more stories. This is a story that sold for $2 million recently at a Sotheby's auction, written by a guy in the 60s, you'll probably know him in a moment, and it told a story about society. $2 million someone paid for those words alone. Let's have a listen to what he said back then. Bit of Bob Dylan. So words matter. You know, if you just step back for me into not feeling like you're at a conference for a second and being a human being, and remind yourself of the many times that you've connected emotionally, given great loyalty, been very emotional to a set of words delivered by someone. And that someone had passion and had meaning. And that's what we're going to ask of you. That's what Nelson and his team have said yes to this show to do. This is a bold show. It's been all around the world and here in Australia now. It's a show that says to you it's okay to be emotional and passionate. But that needs to be based on truths. It can't just be plucked out of the air and said, well, let's stand for this. Simple truths drive great beliefs. And those simple truths for you are already there. The truth is, this idea of hope for science and people behind the scenes making my life better is real. It's a truth society has, and you're sitting in front of me now responsible for that. You can deliver that into the world. You've got science on your side, and you deliver it every day to look after us, to make our lives better. What I'd love you to understand is how powerful that is. That's a brand with power. And we look to people. It's not enough to have those words on the great images outside as you come in. It's not enough. What you have to have is a bunch of people who leave this room passionate to deliver it, because I will only change when somebody shakes my hand, looks in my eye and says, this is where we're going. Let's go together. So we look to people, not just words, not buzzwords. People change things. I'll give you an example of that. It was a great example. Again, this goes back to the 50s, actually, 60s. A guy called Otis Redding wrote a song. And that song, I would call a misogynist song. He wrote it about his woman. When the woman came home at night, she needed to give him a bit of respect. This is how he did it. See what he said.
What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got that. But all the nights I call, she's a little respect when I come home, baby. Cause your kisses, yeah, they're sweeter than honey. And I'm gonna give you all of my money. So all I'm asking for is
No. See, Sammy likes playing that bit. I don't know why, because what happened next was much more interesting. Much more interesting. This woman comes along. She looks like this. She took the same words. Name was Aretha Franklin. Same words, different passion. She changed the world. This was the start, when you look back in history, of a difference of how we see women. Just because she took those same words and she did this to them.
But R-E-S-P-C-T, you know what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T,
That was much better. That second one, better than the first. It's nice. People have got to be willing to deliver words. Differently, with passion, with conviction. As I look at what's going on in the world, I know that the ones who are taking words and making it their own in a heroic and powerful way, that's where I'm going. Unfortunately, a lot of it is for the wrong reason. So you've got to make it for the right reason. Now the question is, and this is what I pose to you, is there's a thing called fear. And fear creeps in. If Aretha was too scared to do something about that and back it, where would we have been? There's a study done, and this goes now back about 7 or 8 years ago, a New Scientist magazine came out and said, of the 10 things shaping the world in our society right now, of the 10 big things, quantum physics and all the rest of it, which I didn't understand, they got to this notion of risk. And they said, what is affecting our society, and especially the business environment, is we're unable to handle this notion of risk. We overcompensate and we shut down Instead of having conferences like this, we save the money, and other corporations will put it away and say, no, we won't do that. What if someone trips over and hurts themselves on their way into the auditorium? We've got crazy. Risk is a very difficult thing because it's a judgment call. And so the idea of judgment and the idea of not being scared is paramount to pulling off a great brand. And we've got it all around us. Kids too scared to play. The actual shot up there behind me, which is the shot of no adults except in the company of a child, was a massive brass plaque on the side of a massive park in New York City. And I took the photo of myself. And so now I'm going into that park and I can't go in unless I've got a child. So it's the lowest common denominator. It's wrong. We've got a world now where someone stands up and says something great, everyone wants to listen because there's too few people doing it. And that's the challenge, is how do you create a great brand that actually has a united voice that makes me feel inspired? Because fear stops people.
I wanna be rich, I want lots of money. Don't care about clever, don't care about funny. I want loads of clothes and fuckloads of diamonds. I heard people die while they try to find them. And I am a weapon of massive consumption. It's not my fault, it's how I'm programmed to function. And I look at the sun, and I look in the mirror. We're on the right to right, you're on to a winner. I don't know what's right and what's real, and I don't know how I'm meant to feel anymore. And when do you think it'll all become clear? 'Cause I've been taken by the fear.
I don't know about you, but you know, you've got kids and you look at them and they look at the way they're educated and they look at the world they're coming into, and I see a lot of fear. When I look at brands, and I work with brands, I look at three emotive drivers towards that particular brand, towards the world that brand's in, and they are fear, desire and frustration. And if you work out the emotive drivers in your world, yeah, we are scared. We're scared of a lot of things, but you know our desire is for someone to give us hope through the idea of how do you enhance a life? Who is doing that? And my desire to have my life better is much bigger than my fear of all those things we just saw. Desire and hope wins. So what you've got is very strong. Don't be scared. So let me move you on to another thought here. And this is a thought that will challenge you, because in a lot of cases when I do this work in corporations, this notion of heroic can be a step too far. Don't let it be. Just because we're Australian and we're quite cynical sometimes and we have the tall poppy syndrome, don't think that you can't be heroic. You already are. Let me give you the definition of hero. Have a read of that. It's very simple. It says someone who is admired for outstanding courage, determination and incredible achievement. Now I know we have images of Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. And sure, they're our poster boys for, poster girls, poster people, there we go, see, fear, poster people for being heroes. But it can be every day as well. So let me show you some heroes. Let's have a song about it, and I want to talk to you about how do we, all of us every day, become heroes.
I will be king. You will queen. And nothing us together. We can be heroes. And just for one day, oh, we can be us. One day.
How about that? And featuring the guitar work of Mr. Phil Sobrano over here. How about that? Very nice. It's really hard to know what to do in this sort of situation. Is it a rock show? Is it a conference? What am I meant to do? Clap or not clap? Anyone struggling with that so far? Everyone all right? You with me? Yeah, okay. So this is the notion. Clap, did you say? This is the notion. And in many ways, let me reassure you of something. From a popular cultural point of view, heroes are very much in vogue. They are wanted by society. There are very few heroes. And in that case, heroic companies stand out. People want to be inspired. They don't just want to be informed, and they don't just want to be sort of told what the information is. They respond greatly to companies and to popular culture that gives them something to believe in and inspires them. I mean, I give you Star Wars. 10 movies, $9 billion spent in this franchise. I mean, how can you ignore, even with the greatest financial mind running the biggest company, you cannot ignore the fact that that's big money, making huge profits on one thing only. What is Star Wars about? It's about a belief. It's about this idea of good over evil, all contained within this notion of the Force. It's a belief, and it's selling lots and lots of tickets. Star Wars, the last one, sold 1.3 billion already. And everyone thought, oh, they can't keep going with that. It's getting stronger all the time. The other thing that I always find fascinating is that we've had 61 superhero movies since the X-Men in 2000. And check this out, since 2011, 10% of all ticket sales of all movies have been on superheroes. Community loves heroes. We lap it up. There's been $4 billion movies. But what we do is we go into the movies and we kind of go, oh, feels better. I'm human and I can go out there and maybe I'm inspired to do other things. And then we go to work. And we kind of, okay, well, that's work and that's the movies and they shouldn't meet. Today, under Nelson's leadership and the management team, the permission for you is to live more heroically, be more emotional, be more passionate for your purpose and belief. It's as simple as that. And you can do that. You can get up out of these seats and do that. In many ways, it's beautifully summarised in this piece out of Spider-Man. I just love this little piece. Have a listen.
You'll never guess who he wants to be. Spider-Man. Why? Well, he knows a hero when he sees one. Too few characters out there flying around like that, saving old girls like me. And Lord knows, kids like Henry need a hero. Courageous, self-sacrificing people, setting examples for all of us. Everybody loves a hero. People line up for them, cheer them, scream their names, and years later they'll tell how they stood in the rain for hours just to get a glimpse of the one who taught him to hold on a second longer. I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble.
There's a lot of concepts in there, and I know you're going to say it's Hollywood, and, does it really mean things in the real world? Well, maybe I'm just a romantic, but I actually think it does mean things. I think there's more meaning in this than in half the stuff I see in business. Because they're trying to make sense of who we are. It's a really important thing, that is. Nobility, it's purpose. It's, is this all there is? There is a great movement around the world about this, and I think the time is coming very fast where all of us are going to question the company we work for. All of us are going to question whether what we're doing actually has enough meaning for us. And if you don't question it, you should. Now, you guys have the great benefit of working in a company that doesn't make shoes or drinks. You actually change the world by enhancing people's lives. So you can take the moral high ground if you buy into that. You can be heroes. Everyone loves a hero. It's beautifully put in that clip. So, ordinary people. When you were growing up, and I did this, I actually did this in the bathroom. I remember my mother getting very upset. Yesterday you did that. Yeah, no, I didn't do it yesterday. And I'm pulling myself up on, I don't know what I was tied around the towel rack. And I'm trying to pull myself up on the towel rack. You know how Batman used to do it up the side of a building? And, of course, it all came undone, didn't it? And I fell down and everything broke and the towel rack broke. But I remember that feeling of feeling when you were young, you could do anything. You could be a hero. And then for some reason, the school system or maybe just post-school into university, it gets knocked out of us. And we start doubting ourselves. And then you start working and it gets more doubt. Well, we've got to put a line in the sand. Everybody can be a hero. If you go home and feel heroic, I guarantee you'll have a better life. Just think what you're doing matters. So, I'll give you an example of heroic behaviour on an everyday level. Simple example. And it began about 10 years ago. And there was a guy who was living in England, living in London with his girlfriend, and they had a terrible split up and he came back to his hometown in Sydney. And he got back to Sydney and he tells the story beautifully. In fact, it's on his website. And he said, standing there in the arrivals terminal, watching other passengers meeting their friends and family with open arms and smiling and faces and hugging and so on, I wanted someone out there to be waiting for me, to be happy to see me, to smile at me, to hug me. His name, or he called himself, Juan Man. Nice that. And you know what he did next? Craziest thing. Anyone who's lived in Sydney would have seen this, but now I've got to tell you, it's in 93 countries around the world, one of the great social movement brands. He went home and he made himself a little poster. And he put 2 words on the poster. Anyone know what it was? Free hugs. Correct. Free hugs. What a stupid idea. Imagine this guy, and he, this is what he looked like. He looked like that. And he's standing there with free hugs. And what are you going to do? In Pitt Street Mall he went. And he stood up. Everyone went round him. They thought he was some sort of religious nut. Don't touch the lunatic. Don't even look at him. Don't look at his eyes. And he stood there for hours waiting for someone to actually take him seriously. Until this older lady comes past. And for her, she was having a terrible day. Her dog had died that week. And it was the first anniversary on that day of her only daughter's death in a car accident. So she was having a pretty shitful day, let me tell you. Now, she came up to him and he saw her and he got down on one knee and they hugged. And people looked and they started hugging. Today, it's in 93 countries. All around the world, I've been hugged in 4... And I'm not a hugger, I tell you, I'm not a hugger. But I hug like this. But I have been hugged in 4 countries. It's a beautiful thing. I was in Melbourne recently where we had, that really kind of... there was a vicious protest going on, and there was it was a marriage equality time, and there were some for and some against, and they were spitting at each other and carrying on. And just about another 100 metres down, there was free hugs. And the difference in the people that were integrating or reacting to the first, to the second, was chalk and cheese. There was happiness and joy. It's just a simple reminder of a simple truth. I want you to watch this, because this matched to a song that was done by a band called the Sick Puppies. There was a guy working in Pitt Street Mall from Sick Puppies who were going nowhere with the band, and he was able to video it and then took a song that they had and put it to the video. And that's now why we've got What Happened. I'm going to get the guys to play you the original song and watch what happened, especially when the older lady comes past and the whole thing changes. This is social movement, this is belief, and this is a brand. Have a look.
I don't mind where you come from, as long as you come with me. But I don't like the illusions I can see them clearly. I don't care, no, I wouldn't dare to fix the twisted in you. You show me that you know you. Don't mind, don't care, as long as you're here. Tell me you leave again, you'll just come back running, cold in your starting. It's all the same, and I'll take you for who you are. Do it all over again. So say hours slide and days go by, and
song and went to number 3 in the United States and number 1 in Australia, and the Sick Puppies have gone on to become a major recording artist off the back of one simple thing, a belief, you know, just someone standing up for something. And it's so easy to do. You just sort of say, this is what I believe in, this is what I stand for. And in many ways, Free Hugs, which is now around the world and continues to be that way, it just continues to be infectious in the way that it makes us realise how simple things are. If I just had, I always say that if I had 10, 15 minutes with a board or a management team and they wanted to know what I'm on about as I travel the world and try and talk about brands, I'd play that video. And I'd say a brand is as simple as that video. It's as simple as understand what needs to be said in your category, get out there and stand for it, and stand for something that matters, that people relate to because of its simplicity and its honesty and its truth. And then build that through your brand. Make sure that your brand is not claiming or promising, it is being. It is being something substantive. And when they wrote the note, and of course he went on to Oprah, so pretty much after that everything was second, you know, like it was one chicken onto Oprah, you're right. He was late onto the Oprah Winfrey show because he was too busy hugging out the front of the studio and he was actually late on air. But apart from that, when he got the note from the Sick Puppies, when they'd finished that and they had it all recorded, they gave him a video of it with a note that just said, this is who you are. That's all it said. And I love that. That's what this is about today. Who are you? What do you stand for? And are you prepared to stand up for it? And that is me. See the way I hug? It's like this. Did you see that? It's pretty weird. Anyway, enough. Heroes can be every day. They should be every day. They should proclaim their beliefs. I love this guy, and he was Australian of the Year 2016. And he was Australian of the Year mainly, I think, because of the stand he took on. There was a terrible scandal inside the armed forces around the brutality or the bullying of women. And he said this, and he came out and made this statement.
On all operations, female soldiers and officers have proven themselves worthy of the best traditions of the Australian Army. They are vital to us, maintaining our capability now and into the future. If that does not suit you, then get out.
Stood up for the first time and I just never more told. Ever since that day, my mama said, never done what I was told. Never stayed for nothing too much, too much you and me. But I stood as much as I can stand, I guess that's why I'm still standing here.
So what do we mean by standing up? I mean, in commercial points of view, I can tell you now, as I study the great brands and work on some around the world, it's a simple case of being relevant to the world you're in. Patagonia, what a brilliant brand. You know, Patagonia talks about this need to be conscious of the environment you're in. And it's one of the great brands that is helping on trying to reverse the sort of steep decline in the environment. They're standing for something and people are responding in retail. Rip Curl, in my opinion, Rip Curl is probably the only brand in this lifestyle surf area that's been able to sustain a belief that's driven commercial success. They've stuck with this live the search all the way through. It resonates with the surfer. It resonates with meaning. Or this one, how bad is that? Have a look at that. That, my friends, is absolutely based on an employee, part-time worker for Lush, in the front window of a San Francisco store, simulating animal testing. This is a simulation of animal testing, and look, 830 stores, 51 countries, profits rising. This brand is not just purchased for its soap or for what it makes, it's purchased for what it stands for, and that's what it's about.
So I stood up with love, call my name, baby. I stood up even when I was all in vain, baby. I stood up once and left down in the cold and rain, baby.
you very much, Sammy Vandenberg, again on just that great song. So, companies are now absolutely have to be more than trading entities. In my view, around the world, the greatest companies, and if we had a day together, I could take you through all of them, and Bayer is among them. They stand for something, they don't just make something. They're heroically helping us make sense of the world. And it's got to go further than just a statement. It's got to come to life. And I think one of the great opportunities for you is to bring it to life, not just through the 350 people sitting here, but through the way you then go forward and communicate your belief. I'll give you an example of that. It doesn't have to be about the product. It should be about the belief. This example, and if you haven't got onto this already, you should, Google, every year, think about their brand through the filter of why they matter to the world. It's a very interesting case study in how they communicate a belief. So they believe they're the window for us to the world, whereas we have got to the point of saying, oh, it's just a search engine, right? Google. We just go. It's almost like a vernacular. It's like we talk about it like we're hoovering the carpet. We Google. They don't want that. What they want is to remind us why they matter. They want to remind us that they're relevant and they have a belief. So every New Year's Eve, they put out a video about how we saw the world through Google. And in doing so, they remind us how much they matter and we attach emotionally. These videos are getting hundreds of millions of hits. This is Google being a great brand based on its belief. Have a look what they did a few weeks ago.
To the families and friends of the victims, know that we'll do everything we can. We are Vegas strong.
No matter what we're going through, we still have to push forward.
Are you ready to shake up the world?
Takes an act of love to realize we are all in this together.
I'm asking that you guys join and mobilize with me.
I will say it right now out loud. Me too. Me too. Me too. Me too.
Hey, back on, bro. You want to kick it, bro? The things that make us different, those are our superpowers. Go out there and conquer the world. Because the world would not be as beautiful as it is if we weren't in it.
So they're moving on from saying, you want to know how a search engine works? Will it really impress you? And we'll tell you how. Nah, not interested. What they're doing is they're making themselves matter and they're reminding us that they matter. There's a concept that I talk about and I call it the crumbling pillars. And the crumbling pillars looks at how there's a shift from the traditional ways that we had pillars in society to the new ways. And the new pillars are actually businesses. The new pillars are the businesses that hold thousands of people together under one belief. They are the pillars that are now affecting how we think and how we feel. And before you go, yeah, that's terrible, it's like we're giving ourselves across to companies. What the hell is a company anyway? A company is a bunch of people who come together to do something they think matters. What is wrong with that? Companies should stand as the new pillars of society. And they should say things like, people like Google and so on, I know we can throw things at them and we can throw things at Apple and Tesla and all these, but you know what they're doing? They're helping us as consumers make our way through this world that we began the show with. full of fear and full of things that are going on, and we kind of go, well, how do we make sense of that? And what we actually do, and don't be cynical about this, what we actually do, because you're doing it yourselves, is we attach ourselves to brands through what they stand for. So that's the Apple or the Virgin or the Body Shop, or these are the great brands. Now then put the mirror to your own faces. Do you talk about that enough? And that's what the likes of Google are doing. There's another one I'll share with you here about understanding the power of stories. And this particular one, it came out of Denmark, and it's a beautiful piece actually about the relevance of this brand to the people of Denmark. I'll share this with you.
It's easy to put people in boxes. There's us, and there's them. The high earners, and those just getting by. Those we trust, and those we try to avoid. There's the new Danes, and those who've always been here. The people from the countryside, and those who've never seen a cow. The religious, and the self-confident. There are those we share something with, and those we don't share anything with.
Velkommen. Jeg kommer til at stille jer nogle spørgsmål i dag. Nogle af dem kan godt være lidt personlige, men jeg håber, I vil svare ærligt på dem. Hvem herinde i rummet var klassens klovn? Hvem er bonusforældre?
And then suddenly, there's us. We who believe in life after death. We who've seen UFOs. And all of us who love to dance. We who've been bullied. And we who've bullied others. And then there's us, the lucky ones who've had sex this past week. We who are broken-hearted. We who are madly in love. We who feel lonely. We who are bisexual, and we who acknowledge the courage of others. We who have found the meaning of life, and we who have saved lives. And then there's all of us who just love Denmark. So maybe there's more that brings us together than we think. TV2 Denmark. All that we share.
That came on and yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's a beautiful piece. It came on and I heard someone whisper in the front row, I've seen this. The reason he's seen this is because it gets spread. The reason it gets spread is because people relate to it. It feels relevant. And many people can it's a fine line, this one, because when brands start having something to say about the culture they live in, it can go terribly wrong. It can be borrowed interest. It can be platitudinal. It can be, we've seen terrible disasters in this area of heavy-handed companies who try and say something to further their sales. All I'm asking you to do today is don't do it for that reason. Do it, start talking about your story like they're talking about theirs. What's your relevance in the community? And this crossover factor is what I'm seeing as the major trend in the world of brands and companies. The crossover from a brand being a trading entity with a budget, and that's all it does, to being something that's relevant in the popular culture it lives in and giving a bunch of people something to make sense of the world with. That's what TV2 did. And to me it was relevant because they're a TV channel and they want to try and show popular culture. They want to try and show the world they're in. It was believable. And you've got to be believable. I've got 4 rules to follow to get this right. The first rule is really important. You've got to understand the truth of the world you're in, which is why we use that stuff earlier in the show. As shocking as some of it is, and as hateful as we think it is, and horrible some of it is, you've got to understand the real world you're in. And then you've got to be relevant to that truth. The truth of the world. You've got to be relevant to that. You can't just stay out of it. And thirdly, you've then got to show that you matter to that relevance. So the idea of why do you matter to what's really going on in the world. Now you've got that. And over the next 4 days, I'm sure you'll be talking a lot about it. But you could bring it to life even more. And finally, a belief in why, not what. You know, this is where I share the belief with Simon Sinek, who talks about the same sort of stuff, where he talks about why. My version is belief. Same thing. Talk about why you matter, not what you do. And that will make a huge difference. So understand yourself in the context of the culture you serve. I love this one. Anyone know who this is, by the way? So that's crazy. Like, maybe a third or more of the audience just said Dove after 1 second of seeing no Dove branding. Where's the brand? Well, you're going to tell me, because obviously you know what you're doing, you're going to say it's about the typography and it's about the use of the white space and all the things we know. You know what it's about? It's about that we know Dove now by what it stands for. And Dove is a FMCG company that is in supermarkets and all over the place, and it's changed in the last 12 years, 11 years. It has tripled its sales globally because it's gone from selling product to standing for something. I'll give you an example of one of the pieces. I hope most of you have seen it. But I want to remind you of this in context to what we're talking about. One of the most beautiful pieces of truth that I've seen, and it wasn't a TV ad, this is content online about what they stand for. Have a look.
I'm a forensic artist. Worked for the San Jose Police Department from 1995 to 2011.
I showed up to a place I'd never been, and there was a guy with a drafting board.
We couldn't see them, they couldn't see us.
Tell me about your hair.
I didn't know what he was doing, but then I could tell after several questions that he was drawing me.
Tell me about your chin.
It kind of protrudes a little bit, especially when I smile.
Your jaw.
My mom told me I had a big jaw.
What would be your most prominent feature?
Kind of have a fat, rounder face.
The older I've gotten, the more freckles I've gotten.
I would say I have a pretty big forehead.
Once I get a sketch, I say thank you very much, and then they leave. I don't see them.
All I had been told before the sketch was to get friendly with this other woman, Chloe.
Today I'm going to ask you some questions about a person you met earlier, and I'm going to ask you some general questions about their face.
She was thin, so you could see her cheekbones. And her chin, it was a nice, thin chin.
She had nice eyes. They lit up when she spoke.
Cute nose.
She had blue eyes, very nice blue eyes.
So here we are. This is the sketch that you helped me create, and that's a sketch that somebody described of you.
So yeah, that's...
She looks closed off and fatter, sadder too. The second one looks more open, friendly, and happy.
I should be more grateful of my natural beauty. It impacts the choices and the friends that we make, the jobs we apply for, how we treat our children. It impacts everything. It couldn't be more critical to your happiness.
Do you think you're more beautiful than you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
We spend a lot of time as women analyzing and trying to fix the things that aren't quite right. And we should spend more time appreciating the things that we do like.
It's a great piece of work. You know, and the point point is businesses with belief now are changing the world. I'm here to tell you, across the board. They're making the most money, they're making the most change, they've got the highest scores in retention and loyalty of their staff, and companies with a purpose are changing the world. They've just got to bring it to life. And it's the heroic art of being, I call it B brands, where you get a belief, you make it so that it's so articulate and so powerful that people want to belong to it, and then you change behaviour through it. 3 Bs. Belief, belonging, behaviour. And there's some of the great brands of the world that I perceive to be running under this notion of belief and belonging and behaviour, whether it's Whole Foods or Jamie Oliver, Richard Branson and Virgin, Google, Icebreaker, Tesla, Sir James Dyson and the Dyson Company, Body Shop, obviously Apple, even our own Dick Smith. So what do? Driven by a passion, and why does that matter? So it's beyond what you do to why. I want to finish with a couple of thoughts before the band's going to take us out with a great song to remind you, and we're going to have some afternoon tea after that. But here's a couple of thoughts. The first one is taking you all the way back to 1997. And if you want any further evidence that this is about the time everything changed, from my view, from 2000 onwards, we are starting to live in an era where belief and belonging and behaviour are leading the world rather than, where is our belief? We've now got companies leading it. And Steve Jobs was at the start of that. He returned to Apple after a 12-year absence. You probably know the story. It had gone down in his absence, and he came back as the great hero. And I've got a clip here, and you'll have to excuse the quality of it because it's a very difficult clip to find, but it captures his first speech when he went back to Apple. And he talked about what Apple was all about. I'll just play it to you, so listen carefully. Here's what he said.
Our customers want to know who is Apple and what is it that we stand for. Where do we fit in this world? And what we're about isn't making boxes for people to get their jobs done, although we do that well. We do that better than almost anybody in some cases. But Apple's about something more than that. Apple, at the core, its core value, is that we believe that people with passion can change the world for the better.
Like from that moment on, if you study Apple, if you really understand Apple, they make computers. You actually make incredible stuff that changes people's lives. I would even say Apple is one of the great brands because what it's done is it's made something that was quite, they could have been the same anywhere, and they've made it part of our lives. And he went on to co-write the manifesto of what Apple believes in. And while they were in real trouble, this changed them around. And he wrote this manifesto with the agency at the time, co-wrote it. And if you haven't seen it, this is a real treat. This is the manifesto that's driven Apple ever since. And you'll see that it's totally based on that speech. And it totally is the foundation of everything they've done in retail and in manufacturing ever since. This is what they said in their manifesto.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So don't be cynical. Don't be cynical about companies. Look at them and understand the ones that are doing the best. Understand your own. Words and stories matter. And they matter if they're relevant and make sense of the human race. Passion has got to be ignited by a shared belief. Passion is the name of the game this afternoon. This is what you're after. The passion to bring things to life. Because it looks like that. That's stupid. That is a guy who just wasted $1,000 and is really happy about it. I do it every day. It's terrible. We're sort of addicted to this tribe that we belong to called Apple. And you go to a dinner party and it's Apple and Samsung, and you almost have to go outside and sort of biff it out. This is what they've done. And look at it. Those guys are on $12 an hour, and they're loving every moment of the fact that they're part of that tribe. Belief leads to belonging, and belonging changes behaviour. And it's as simple as that. So you know what? The real challenge for you now is, with your humanness, with your passion, to absolutely get the very best of who you are into this brand.
I got another confession, babe. I'm your fool.